Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, you guys would have seen in the videos I've been posting up, I've been playing a mad-ass Armageddon brand build that I haven't yet put a video up on. So, basically started from Firestorm, and then I realized that Armageddon brands were just like easy as shit to play. And then I went, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna rejig this, retool it, and do something that I think like 0.7% of the league are playing Armageddon brands. So it's not commonly played. This is an Inquisitor build, and it uses a pretty key staff known as the Martyr of Innocence. Now, this is not a cheap build. This is definitely going to set you back, but it's a relatively straightforward build. And yeah, basically we're taking advantage of Battle Mage, which rolls on the Martyr of Innocence as a stock. It got buffed this league. So basically, instead of having to take the node with Battle Mage on the Inquisitor tree, you can max out Pious Path, Sanctuary, and your other nodes, and also get Battle Mage as well. So technically you get 5 Keystone Ascendancy points on this build. Another couple of things before we get into the full guide. I am running Culling Strike. That does work with spells. Culling Strike is a global attribute. I am running an Explodey chest. While not the best Explodey chest that I could get, still gets me up to nearly 7k EHP. This is going to run Avatar of Fire. Works really well. And we do have 10% chance to gain elusive on boots, which basically means of perpetual elusive buffs on me. And the best way to do that is to get Redeemer boots, level 84, around about, item level 84, and then just alteration that until you get that roll, and then go from there. Everything else is relatively straightforward. We do have an Assassin's Mark ring and life gain on spells, but we'll get into the gearing when we get there. None of this is mandatory. You can just sort of go as, you know, this is min and max pretty heavily. But yeah, let's get into the build. And anyway, this is, and I should say, so essentially we got up to 6 Armageddon brands. Basically how this works is you just cast your Armageddon brands and then run away, and then you hit Q to pop your Wave of Conviction. And basically inflict Scorch onto enemies, or essentially debuff enemies, exposure, not Scorch. So as you do that, you're also going to generate inspiration charges, so then that's going to increase your crit of your Armageddon brands. So basically that'll buff up your brands as well, and that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward stuff. And basically all you're going to do is then just run around and try not to get hit, and that's basically how this build works. Anyway, let's get into the guide. Okay, so from a gearing or armor and primary gear perspective, the first thing we're going to be running on this build is going to be a Crown of the Inward Eye. This is going to give us a ton of energy shield, maximum life, and mana, and also 1000 armor as a base. On this, we're going to also get the Enchant Armageddon brand, deals 40% increased damage. Now, for our body armor, we're going to be basically running an Explodey chest. However you do this is fine. The one that I'm running in the POB isn't amazing, but that's the goal that you want to get to. The gloves, you're going to want to do a Warlord influence set of gloves, and you're going to alteration slam Culling Strike, and that basically means when enemies get to 10% life remaining, they automatically die. That's then going to trigger Explodey chest. So basically it's going to more frequently trigger Explodey chest on mobs and packs as you're mapping and increase your clear speed. Now for boots, you're basically going to be running Redeemer boots, and with that then again just alteration until you get elusive on critical strike. In my case, I got a 10% roll. If you only get a 5% roll, try and diviner it to a 10%. That just means 1 in every 10 hits on critical strike is going to give you an elusive buff, which basically increases your dodge chance and movement speed, etc. Now, for the Stygian Vise that I was running in my build, basically I just went all resist, strength, life, some regeneration. Basically, you're going to be filling in your gaps with your belts. And then the Abyssal Jewel that you want to run, you know, critical strike multiplier, or something of the lines of maximum life. Whatever gets you over the line at the end of the day is what you need to run in it. But that's pretty much it for armor. Okay, so for the weapon that we're going to be using here, we're going to be rolling with the Martyr of Innocence. The main reason for this is obviously the Battle Mage roll. It also grants Vengeance, increases block, and this build is very heavily block reliant. You're also going to get 15% fire resistance penetration if you've blocked as well, 100% increased fire damage, and just base fire damage itself. As an overall is really cheap and a fantastic stave to be using on this build. Okay, so for the jewelry you're going to be using on this build, for your amulet we're going to be running a Zoph's Blood, pretty simple one, drops on Zoph encounters. This gives you 10% increased fire penetration, but also covers enemies in ash when they hit you, which you're going to get hit a fair bit with this, and that's basically going to give you increased survivability and also increased damage on enemies. This is going to also convert your physical damage through Avatar of Fire. It's going to give you 10% increased strength, and it's also going to give you 10% increased maximum life. You'll also need to allocate or anoint Runesmith. That's going to give you, I believe, an extra charge, an extra brand as well. Now for the rings, the first ring we're going to be running is going to have Assassin's Mark on hit. This is going to increase crit multi on enemies, in particular unique enemies or rare bosses. I've also got life on hit from when enemies are hit by spells, and some life and resistance on this ring as well. And pretty much the other ring I'm running is just to max out my life, max out my resistances, get a bit of chaos resist, and yeah, pretty straightforward. Very easy to roll, very easy to get, and not too expensive. Okay, so for jewels we're going to be running an Intuitive Leap. This is so we can basically get more nut points that don't need to be connected through nodes in the tree. We're going to be running a Blue Nightmare. This is going to assist us in generating power charges and is going to give us a bit more block and survivability. And we're also going to be running a Glorious Vanity with the Doriani passive. This is basically going to allow us to run our... I will just check. Run our Corrupted Soul, and I'll explain that in the tree itself. Now, I do have a Watcher's Eye in this build, and that is in the POB, sorry. It's not critical to this build, and you don't need it. You can put any other stats you need in another jewel or a different Watcher's Eye that buffs up Zealotry or Clarity or something like that. Entirely up to you, but I'll leave it to you to figure that out. The one in the POB is the one that I'm using, however, and you can go by that too. It's relatively cheap as well. Okay, so for skill gems, we're going to be running in our Helm, Zealotry, Clarity, Righteous Fire, that is Val Righteous Fire, and Vitality. Our chest piece, we're going to be running Armageddon brand, Energy Leech, Energy Shield Leech, Swift brand, Arcane Surge, Concentrated Effect, and Elemental Focus. For our boots, we're going to go for a level 14 cast when damage is taken setup. That means level 16 Immortal Call, Frost Shield, and we'll get increased duration up to level 20, so that lasts for as long as possible. In our weapons slot, as far as our Martyr of Innocence goes, I am running a Wave of Conviction in this socket. I'm also running Inspiration, which generates inspiration charges, Combustion, faster casting, increased AoE, and Unleash. Now for the gloves, I am running Herald of Ash, Second Wind, Enduring Cry, and Flame Dash. Okay, so we've got the tree in front of me, and originally I had done this based on strength stacking and went down here, but we're not going to do that. I respec'd out of that. Now, there are a few things going on in this tree, and you would have seen in the jewel section. There are a few crazy ass jewels that we're running in this, but we'll go into that when we get there. So essentially, to get this started, you're going to basically take this up to the Sanctity nodes. You're going to take Holy Dominion, Light of Divinity, Discipline and Training, and Amplify. You'll move up to Retribution. I built to the right side of the tree first, so I went to Assassination and Coordination, and then I picked up my nodes in here. Now, you're not necessarily going to get an Intuitive Leap straight away. They're about 25 Chaos in League. They're 24 Chaos right now, so they're nice and cheap. But you can do that. That'll give you access to brand equity, which gives you an additional brand. It's pretty critical to this build. enigmatic defense and whatnot. We're using a staff so it buffs us up, and prodigal perfection, etc., and more AoE damage with blast radius. Now, in building this way to the right, you'll also need to pick up this node down here, because you will need to get a glorious vanity jewel, and these are about 25 chaos. Actually, let's just have a look. These are about 50 chaos right now. And this is going to give you access to Corrupted Soul. What Corrupted Soul does is 50% of non-chaos damage taken bypasses your energy shield, but you get 20% of your maximum, or 20% maximum life as extra energy shield, which is why we have nearly 2100 ES on this build. That's just going to give you increased defensiveness. It is going to hit your health pool as far as elemental damage and whatnot, but it means that it's going to basically split 50 to your ES, 50 to your life pool. So the more you push your life pool up, the more ES you'll get as well, and basically you'll become tankier and tankier. And the majority of builds running Inquisitors are doing this for this league for that reason. Now, coming back up here, so once you've built to the right side of the tree, you've picked up Assassinations, Coordination, you've picked up your nodes here, you've picked up all of these nodes within here. You will need all of these. Then you're gonna come back here and you're going to build upwards, and you're gonna go to Serpent Stance. That's going to increase your stuff, Critical Strike, an Enigmatic Reach, which means as you generate power charges, you are going to be able to do increased AoE. Now, in the case of my build, I did put a cluster jewel in this, and I went for Themophage, Arcane Heroism, and Practice Caster. That's basically, so I could generate and push up my Arcane Surge and buff that up. And then Thaumaphage is basically to hinder enemies and also do more spell leech. And then I did put a Fettle Gem on this, and now this is what I say, that this isn't a cheap build. Fettles were about 1x when I got Fettles, so what are they now? 1.5x, so they're not cheap. And this itself is not going to necessarily be a cheap cluster jewel to get either. Actually it is. It's about 40 chaos. So you can definitely get better cluster jewels, and I haven't fully kitted this out because I'm only level 93 on this character. But you can do that, or you could run any other elemental damage clusters in there if you wanted to. Now, so you're going to come to the left, you're going to pick up Arcane Potency. That's going to give you increased crit multi, and we use crit, we get to about 90% plus 90 something percent effective crit, including our flasks. So then you'll pick up Purity of Flesh, Sovereignty, and we want these mana reduction nodes, which means we can run 4 auras. And then you'll come down, you'll pick up Runebinder. This means, again, you can have another additional brand attached to an enemy, and that's going to get us to 6 brands, which is nice and juicy. Then you'll come down, you'll get Faith and Steel. Now for this one, you'll get this node socket in here, but you're not necessarily going to get a Blue Nightmare straight away. Now they are only 45 chaos, but essentially just this gives you power charge generation potential, and also gives you a little bit of extra chaos damage and whatnot, and block as well for spells, and that's what you want. This is going to buff up your spell block. So basically the way that this works is it gives any passives granting lightning resist, elemental resist, and the radius the ability to also generate power charges. And because we take Faith and Steel, this now gets 8% chance to gain power charges on kill. And I'm pretty sure that, so Holy Dominion does exactly the same thing. Sorry, I've just gone to D&D. So that gives you 20% chance to basically get power charges on kill. That's going to be your power charge generator, and one of the easiest ways that you can do that, which is also why most people are playing that on their Inquisitor builds. So once you've gotten that, you're going to pick up Devotion, and then we're going to pick up these counterweight nodes and Whirling Barrier, because we're going to try and max our block as far as we can, and we're going to try and max out Critical Strike and Critical Multi straight away up in this build. That's pretty much a big thing. Crit Multi and Crit Strike are 2 of the bigger rolls that you're going to get. So cluster jewel wise, you can do this last. You don't need to do this straight away, and if at all, you don't necessarily need to put these clusters in. You can reallocate throughout the tree, and there's plenty of directions you could go. You could go up here, you could pick up these nodes here, you could pick up these nodes here. So I would just basically build across here, pick up these nodes and get these crit nodes. That's going to push your damage up further and give you more crit multi. There's a bunch of different ways that you could go here. It really just depends on how you want to play the game. But yeah, that's pretty much the tree. This will be in the POB. Oh, and I should also say I did put a Watcher's Eye on this build, and I basically went for the Zealotry Energy Shield Leech node and the Vitality Life Leech nodes on the Watcher's Eye. And the reason why is we're basically going to be pushing our Leech up, so you essentially won't die when running maps, and even bosses, you can sustain bosses all day long. That's basically just to get this where it needs to be. But yeah, that's basically the tree, nothing crazy, and we'll go through the Ascendencies next. Okay, so for Ascendencies, the first one you're going to take is going to be Righteous Providence. This is going to give you crit, a 1% crit chance per your lowest of either strength or intelligence. So if your intelligence is lower than your strength, you'll get 1% crit chance, and vice versa. It's also going to give you 50 flat strength and intelligence, so you don't really have to worry about those nodes. Now, the next thing you're going to take, the second node you're going to take, is Inevitable Judgment. This basically means that critical strikes ignore elemental resistances, so all your crits basically assume that enemies have 0% resistance, and you'll do quite a bit of damage with that. And because we're going to be critting 90% of the time, it's going to be very powerful. Now, non-crits are going to penetrate 10% enemy resistance, so that's still going to negate enemy resistances when you're not critting, but we're aiming to crit almost all the time. Now, the third thing that we'll take, sorry, Mike's just getting away from me. The third thing that we'll take will be Sanctuary. This will basically mean that when you're stationary, you're going to have Consecrated Ground, and also Consecrated Ground applies 15% damage taken to enemies, so it's going to increase damage output to enemies. And then from there, you're also going to run Pious Path. Apologies. This is going to give you increased life regeneration and energy shield regeneration, which is really good considering we're running both ES and life when we're running an EHP build. And then you're also going to get immunity to elemental ailments, which means that annoying fucking mechanic where you open up a chest and you freeze automatically and rah rah rah, that's not going to affect this build. So you're basically getting a free pass on that. So if you've always died to those stupid chests that freeze you and then you die because the enemies overwhelm you or it all explodes, that's actually not going to happen for this build, and I've never had an instance of that. The minute I got Pious Path, I haven't had that happen in T16 plus maps for the entire duration of the game. The other thing is the effects of your Consecrated Ground are going to linger for 4 seconds, which means that's just going to beef up your ability to regenerate health and energy shield, and also be immune to elemental ailments. Now, because the Martyr of Innocence gives us Battle Mage, by technicality, we also get Battle Mage, and what Battle Mage does is it basically allocates added spell damage based on the damage of your main hand weapon. In this case, we have a staff with a relatively high amount of elemental damage, so this really buffs the shit out of us. And to be honest with you, unless you're an absolute guru at crafting staves, this is pretty much one of the best picks that you could run on this build. I did get a good roll. It could be higher on the max fire damage, but it is what it is. Now with the harvest crafting, you can do implicit crafts on this too, such as more elemental damage per quality and whatnot, so look out for those as well. Okay, so for the Pantheon on this build, I'm running Soul of the Brine King mainly for the stun, the stun recovery and immunity, and also Soul of Shikari. That's mainly because Dot is the worst enemy of this build. I do have a Staunching Flask to get rid of bleed, but Chaos Dot is a bit of an issue, as well as Poison. I haven't upgraded either of these because I've just been lazy, and I'm working on another build. This is my third build, so I am working on another build, but yeah, that's what I'm running for my Pantheon. Alright, so something new that I'm adding into these build guides is going to be the MTXs that I'm using. So basically on the helm, we're running a Nightfall helm. We're running the Deadly Renegade body armor from this league, and also the Deadly Renegade cloak. Shade of Axiom will pop, no one really sees it though. Sunrise boots, Decide gloves, basically because it looks cool. The white character effect, and also Sunrise footprints. I'm also running the Awakening weapon effect, which is from the Awakening League all the way years ago. I've got the Subjugator Portal and Forge Lion Pet and Fire Frog. Now, if you want to know what's making all the white pops on the screen, it's actually the white aura effect, which I've got attached to my Herald of Fire. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry, the white Herald effect, and also I've also got the white aura effect. Anyway, those are the MTXs I'm running on this build. If you wanted to know, if you wanted to mimic it or do something similar, then that's pretty much it. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching this build guide. I hope this helps you set up an Armageddon brand character. This tree can be applied to things like Blade Blast as well. It can be applied to Blade Vortex as well. There's a whole bunch of other builds that you could play. You could play Detonate Dead as well with this tree. That'll also work. Pretty much anything with fire is going to work with this tree. It's very homogeneous across the board, and it works with a lot of different build mechanics. The only things that you'll really need to tweak will be the specific nodes for the brands themselves. But you know, you can wind those off, punch those into more health or energy shield nodes, or go for more crit nodes. But that's pretty much it. Anyway, if this video helps, if you like this build, you want to try it, give me a like, give me a sub, help the channel out. But until next time, bye.